And I don't care whether you're a Marine officer, you're disgracing the Marine Corps by what you're doing. You hate your country. You accuse a man of a murder, of being a murderer, President Bush. And you know, if I were Bush, I'd take a look at you, Professor. I'd definitely take a look at you. Just like Sami al-Arian, I'd put the FBI on you and Nutty Barrett and find out what the hell you guys are up to, bottom line. Thanks for being here.
We care enough about our fellow citizens who died, Bill Riley, to find out why they died and how they died, which is more than the government has done.
You have disgraced those people by accusing the president of being a murderer.
Making their way onto the campuses of some major American universities. Joining us now, the co-chairman of Scholars for 9/11 Truth, Professor Emeritus at the University of Minnesota at Duluth, James Fetzer. Professor, thank you so much for being here with us. First of all, is this a required course? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it a required course?
Well, you got your facts foxed, I'm sorry to say. In fact, I created an organization of faculty and experts to study 9/11, not to teach in courses.
Right.
But I must tell you what we have discovered.
Well, I just want to be clear, because
certainly qualify as material for an important course.
So you're saying you're not teaching this?
Teaching.
I want to be clear here. You're not teaching a course in this.
No, you're confused, and I hope that Fox usually does a better job on their research than this.
All right, so
I created an organization of faculty and scholars to study 9/11.
All right, I want to be clear on this.
We discovered that practically everything the government has told us about it is false.
Yeah, I want to get into that in a moment. I just want to be clear. So as far as you know, there is no course on 9/11 conspiracy theories being taught at your university or any place else that you know of?
That's right, but it's a great idea. I would certainly support having such a course because there's a lot of material to work with.
All right, and what evidence do you have that the government was involved, that Cheney knew, that anybody in the chain of command knew ahead of time that this was going to happen on 9/11?
Prior knowledge. W199I, George Bush signed Order 199I, WF 213-589 ordering the FBI to stop the investigation of Islamic terrorists. Flight school instructor warned that a known terrorist was taking flight training last August, Star Tribune, St. Paul, Minnesota, when a Twin Cities flight instructor phoned the FBI last August to alert the agency that a terrorist might be taking lessons to fly a jumbo jet. He did it in a dramatic way. "Do you realize how serious this is?" the instructor asked an FBI agent. "This man wants training on a 747. A 747 fully loaded with fuel could be used as a weapon."
What evidence do you have that the government was involved, that Cheney knew, that anybody in the chain of command knew ahead of time that this was going to happen on 9/11?
Congressman, FBI ignored repeated warnings. Newsmax.com, the FBI ignored several specific and sometimes frantic warnings of a Minnesota flight instructor who told the Bureau that an Arab man could be planning to use a 747 jumbo jet as a flying bomb. FBI and U.S. spy agents say Bush spiked bin Laden probes before the 11th of September, the London Guardian. FBI and military intelligence officials in Washington say they were prevented for political reasons from carrying out full investigations into members of the bin Laden family in the U.S. before the terrorist attacks of September 11th. Agent blasts FBI over the 11th of September cover-up. Guardian and Limited Observer. The FBI was under intense pressure yesterday to explain why its top officials had apparently stymied efforts by their own agents to investigate a long and clear pattern of evidence that Islamic extremists were plotting terror attacks on U.S. soil.
What evidence do you have that the government was involved, that Cheney knew, that anybody in the chain of command knew ahead of time that this was going to happen on 9/11?
FBI knew terrorists were using flight schools. Washington Post. Federal authorities have been aware for years that suspected terrorists with ties to Osama bin Laden were receiving flight training at schools in the United States and abroad, according to interviews and court testimony. Agent alleges FBI ignored Hamas activities. Chicago News, saying Bureau refused to file charges, disrupt pre-September 11th crimes. Washington Post, an FBI agent in Chicago has accused his superiors of ignoring the pre-September 11th criminal activities of alleged U.S. associates of the Islamic Resistance Movement, the terrorist organization also known as Hamas. The agent also alleged that the Bureau steered agents away from filing criminal cases that he believes could have disrupted Hamas's operations in this country. FBI was warned of September 11th hijacker. ABC News, a paid FBI informant told ABC News that 3 years before September 11th, he began providing the FBI with information about a young Saudi who later flew a hijacked passenger plane into the Pentagon.
What evidence do you have that the government was involved, that Cheney knew, that anybody in the chain of command knew ahead of time that this was going to happen on 9/11?
New details of FBI agent's Phoenix memo emerge. Cox News, a memo written by a Phoenix FBI agent 2 months before the September 11th terrorist attacks linked Arab flight students to a radical Islamic group in England that has ties to alleged shoe bomber Richard Reed, according to new information that emerged Wednesday. Israel dismisses report it didn't share World Trade Center attack data. The Jerusalem Post. Israeli officials here are blasting a 4-part Fox News series that alleges that Israeli intelligence officials failed to share what they knew about September 11th with their American counterparts prior to the attacks, and that Israelis in the U.S. have been caught spying on Arab citizens. Willie Brown got low-key early warning about air travel. San Francisco Chronicle. For Mayor Willie Brown, the first signs that something was amiss came late Monday, when he got a call from what he described as his airport security, a full 8 hours before yesterday's string of terrorist attacks, advising him that Americans should be cautious about their air travel. The failure of government. World Net Daily. There's a growing body of evidence that those entrusted and paid by the people to know about threats indeed had some warning, but failed to pass it on to the public. For instance, according to a report in the London Telegraph, Israeli intelligence agents traveled to Washington in August to warn the FBI and Central Intelligence Agency that large-scale terrorist attacks on highly visible targets on the American mainland were imminent. The Israelis warned that as many as 200 terrorists linked to Osama bin Laden and Iraq were preparing a big operation. Salman Rushdie claims U.S. authorities knew of attack. Hindustan Times. India-born controversial writer Salman Rushdie has claimed that American authorities knew of an imminent terrorist strike when they prevented him from taking internal flights in Canada and the U.S. a week before the September 11th terror attacks. Rushdie said on September 3 the Federal Aviation Authority made an emergency ruling to prevent him from flying, unless airlines complied with strict and costly security measures, the Times Daily reported.
What evidence do you have that the government was involved, that Cheney knew, that anybody in the chain of command knew ahead of time that this was going to happen on 9/11?
Expert Russia knew in advance, encouraged citizens to cash out dollars. Newsmax.com. Russian press accounts and other activities by the Russian government this summer indicate that the Russian government knew in advance that something would happen to America, including a financial attack against the U.S. Russian economist predicted strikes on America. TheWinds.org. In what is now a stunning rebuttal to the official U.S. storyline regarding the events of September 11th, ranking Russian economist Dr. Tatiana Koryagina revealed astounding insight into the planned attack on America 2 months prior to the September 11th disaster. Newspaper Echelon gave authorities warning of attacks. News bites. Washington Post. U.S. and Israeli intelligence agencies received warning signals at least 3 months ago that Middle Eastern terrorists were planning to hijack commercial aircraft to use as weapons. Trained. Hijackers may have trained at U.S. bases. MSNBC Newsweek. 3 of the alleged hijackers listed their address on driver's licenses and car registrations as the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida, known as the cradle of U.S. Navy aviation, according to a high-ranking U.S. Navy source. Another of the alleged hijackers may have been trained in strategy and tactics at the Air War College in Montgomery, Alabama, said another high-ranking Pentagon official. The 5th man may have received language instruction at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. Both were former Saudi Air Force pilots who had come to the United States, according to the Pentagon source. Funded. U.S. sent Afghanistan $125 million. Washington is largest donor for second straight year. World Net Daily. The United States has sent nearly $125 million in aid to Afghanistan this year, making Washington the country's largest benefactor for the second straight year. Protection. Bush took FBI agents off Laden family trail. The Times of India. America was itself to blame for the events of September 11th, because the U.S. administration was using kid gloves in tracking down Osama bin Laden and other fanatics linked to Saudi Arabia, a special BBC investigation has alleged in a damning indictment of the 2 presidents Bush and American foreign policy. Bin Laden comes home to roost. His CIA ties are only the beginning of a woeful story. MSNBC. At the CIA, it happens often enough to have a code name, blowback. Simply defined, this is the term that describes an agent, an operative or an operation that has turned on its creators. Osama bin Laden, our new public enemy number 1, is the personification of blowback. And the fact that he is viewed as a hero by millions in the Islamic world proves again the old adage, reap what you sow. FBI claims bin Laden inquiry was frustrated. London Guardian. Officials told to back off on Saudis before September 11th. FBI and military intelligence officials in Washington say they were prevented for political reasons from carrying out full investigations into members of the bin Laden family in the U.S. before the terrorist attacks of September 11th.
What evidence do you have that the government was involved, that Cheney knew, that anybody in the chain of command knew ahead of time that this was going to happen on 9/11?
Bin Laden underwent treatment in July at Dubai American Hospital. Yahoo News. Osama bin Laden underwent treatment in July at the American Hospital in Dubai, where he met a U.S. Central Intelligence Agency CIA official. French daily Le Figaro and Radio France International reported. Report bin Laden treated at U.S. hospital. The Washington Times. Paris, October 31 UPI, a CIA agent allegedly met with suspected terrorist mastermind Osama bin Laden in July, while the Saudi underwent treatment for kidney problems at an American hospital in Dubai, France's La Figaro newspaper reported Wednesday.